What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this one, we have Akala perfectly explains the structural racism that still exists today in Britain. I think this is going to be intriguing because I get intrigued to see how people think of racism, structural racism, um, maybe programs or systems that have been put into place when racism did exist and the systems haven't changed. It's stuff like this, I don't know, that I'll be thinking about. But I'm intrigued to hear what Akala has to say. Before we dive in, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to subscribe, give a video a thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to support the channel further, in the description, there's a Patreon link, there's a premium request link. Hit either link, make a suggestion. It's a premium request from Big Dave. Shout out Big Dave, because he said this will make him see the truth. So let's.
I think that when we talk about race, we tend to focus on individual acts of prejudice, which is why UKIP often come up, because they'll overtly say stuff that we find offensive. But unfortunately, the issue of race, if we understand it, is a lot more insidious. And it takes a lot more of a historical view to understand the difference between individual bias and structural racism and privilege. And the idea of Great Britain was intimately tied to the fact that Britain's invaded almost every country on the earth, literally. No, literally, there's a map, you can Google it. And so the idea of our greatness was intimately tied to this idea of empire, which was intimately tied to what Rudyard Kipling calls the white man's burden, to go and civilize all these stupid brown folks that have been writing and having civilizations for thousands of years. But let's forget all of that. And so if we fast forward to today, when we talk about structural racism in Britain, do we have the same institutional disparities in rates of imprisonment that they have in America? Yes, absolutely we do. Do we have the same disparities in terms of who's dying in police custody? Yes, indeed we do. In 2011, we were told we loved Libyans so much we wanted to bomb democracy into them. Less than 5 years later, we're leaving people fleeing the same conflict to drown in the sea, while giving a woman space in a national newspaper to refer to them as cockroaches. And when you refer to humans as cockroaches, that is a mandate for murder. Let's be clear about that. The moment human beings become non-human, that is a mandate for murder. And
that is such a fact. That is such a fact, and that's why in like TV shows or movies, when you see like someone trying to live, they try to start saying, "Hey, I have kids, I got a family, I go to this school, I'm this old," because you're trying to humanize yourself to that person. You're trying to get them to see you as a human, and for this to be very hard for you to do, to be able to take a life. And that's what happens when you dehumanize people, when you call people cockroaches, for sure. Absolutely, that's what you dehumanize them to the point where, yeah, they can be killed now because people are going to say, oh, they're cockroaches. And so people, so many times, and it frustrates me to no end because I used to think the same way. I get disappointed in myself when I think about it. When people say, like, words don't hurt, like, stop being so offended, words don't hurt. I get it, some people are sensitive, but words are the most powerful thing on earth. Words, word communication, putting systems into place, all the words are painful. When you can dehumanize someone in another person's head, that's power. You can call people cockroaches and now people don't feel bad that they're being killed. Words hurt. Words are the most powerful thing. It took me a long time to understand that and realize that. But yes, words are the most powerful thing. All right, let's continue. I'm sorry.
There's a long historical parallel of that. Today, Germany, the country that bombed this country, in our grandparents' lifetimes, so theoretically the grandchildren of Nazis can get in and out of England easier than the grandchildren of people from the Commonwealth who fought against the Nazis. And where do they come from? When we talk about immigrants, do we mean people from Australia and New Zealand? Didn't Boris Johnson go to Australia and say, hey, we're culturally the same? Was he talking about the Aborigines when he said that?
We call them expats.
Right. White people have such a different way of classifying themselves that white immigrants are expats and non-white immigrants are immigrants. So when we say immigrants, if we go to border control, we can go there, Yarlswood, and we go and look at who's there. It's not a bunch of white people from New Zealand. So we have structural forms of privilege and bias that are much more insidious and much more difficult to overcome. The reaction to Africans and Asians coming here post-World War II, to rebuild the country after the Queen's German cousins bombed it, the reaction to them was one of general hatred. It's illogical. These people who had formerly been colonized by Britain had fought in both world wars. India gave 2.5 million volunteers, for those who don't know. When we talk about being saved by America in the war, we want to talk about being saved by India and Russia. That would be a bit more accurate. But that's a bit inconvenient. But the reaction to
But that's a bit into Akala, bro. I rock with him because he's so knowledgeable. He knows so much history, and for sure, I react to India channel, so I know how much India helped during the war, and I know how much lives they were sacrificed. Like they came over and laid their lives down on the line and sacrificed themselves, and were forced to fight in this war. But yet, Britain, when it was Britain's putting them through famines, Britain has looted everything they have. And I'm not disrespecting Britain. I'm just telling you the facts. You did cause famine, not you personally, but there was. I mean, they did have money, and there was a lot of money taken out of India. You may have left behind things, and I'm not saying you didn't, because I think Britain's done a lot of great things for the world. But also, there's a dark side to being the biggest empire the world has ever seen. Can't do that without getting your hands dirty. And so I agree with him. U.S. We came in at the end of the war. We helped, but probably not as much as 2.5 million soldiers coming from India. I don't know how Russia helped. I know they fought the Nazis on their end. I don't know if it was necessarily for the West, or I think it was more for their own reasons. But I think Kyle is absolutely awesome when he says, "Son, when you talk about immigrants, a lot of people aren't talking about white immigrants, and as much as people say they are, a lot of people aren't. Let's be honest." He's talking immigrants. When you think of immigrant, there's a certain image that pops in your head, and it feels like it's almost been designed that way. But I'm gonna let Akala talk. I'm sorry.
those people and their descendants has been one that is about structural bias and privilege. The greatest metaphor for this might be Canary Wharf and Tower Hamlets. Sure. If you look at that predominantly Bengali community that has to look at Canary Wharf every day, how many of those people work in Canary Wharf other than to clean toilets?
I only got into that through grime. So the first thing, I'm listening to grime records and they're all rapping about E14.
Yeah.
And I'm going, where's that? And I'm like, Canary Wharf?
Yeah, they're definitely not rapping about Canary I suppose what I'm saying is not about saying that there's bias and bigotry everywhere in the world. The country my grandparents come from, it's pretty much generally accepted that they don't like gay people. But what's interesting, race even plays a role in that. In Jamaica, we have disgraceful homophobia. No one ever says it's because of Christian fundamentalism. Because even though it is justified in explicitly Christian fundamentalist terms, because only Muslims do bad stuff because of their religion. Because we know almost all the Muslims in the world are brown. Whereas when a German
I'm gonna let him finish. I'm gonna let him finish.
Wings pilot crashes and kills 150 people deliberately, or the man in Norway killed nearly 90 people. I was in Australia when that happened. This is how uniform the agreement is that white people will be portrayed differently. The Australian media referred to Andres Breivik as having terrorist-like tactics.
Yeah.
I mean, to think about that.
Yeah.
This guy killed almost 100 people, and he's just almost a terrorist.
And he'd written a crazy thing about Muslims.
No, it's very clear. I mean, he was a terrorist by any standard. The idea that white is right isn't just a European idea. It's an idea that has had insidious implications, because no matter what, the 700 people that were left to drown off the coast of the Mediterranean, were they white human beings, they wouldn't have been left to drown. And they certainly wouldn't be called cockroaches.
Well,
And that's a fact. Terrorists it's crazy after killing almost 100. It's a terrorist attack. That's absolutely disgusting. And he's right. And I can't speak to any kind of structural racism in Britain because I've never lived in Britain. But when he was talking, I was saying U.S. and we have a lot of similarities. And I think one thing, I'm a Christian. Definitely believe Jesus Christ died for my sins. Definitely believe I'm going to heaven. But I will say, I react to a lot of India videos, and I react to a lot of videos in a lot of different countries, and everybody in the world thinks are calling out Muslims. But when this dude, I was reacting to this India video, and the video was titled like "Why Islam is Incompatible with Democracy," and he's listing these points out. And I'm a Christian, but I'm not gonna. The points he's listing out, I'm listening, and I'm like, bro, a lot of those points that you're listing out, like, Christianity kind of follows the same thing. There, and don't get, I'm not, there's a lot of stuff that he said that Christianity doesn't follow, but there were things like when he said, if it was like between following the law of the land or following God's law, people are going to follow God's law. And I said, yeah, you're going to do the same with Christianity. The Bible says to follow the law of the land, yet the law of the land disagrees with the Bible. More than likely, people are going to the Bible. When you have one entity that has all power, and there were other things, but it was just very interesting to kind of hear that and hear him say how it is, and you do feel like there is a face being put to immigrants, and when people talk about immigrants, it's never when people like got posters or you see videos. You honestly never really do see white immigrants from any countries that are talked about in a bad light often. As often. I'll say as often. But I'm gonna end the video there because I done went on a whole rant. I hope y'all enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. I'll see y'all next time.